Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled A-N-D, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. I think one of the best reasons and one of the best purposes for this weekly show is that it really convinces people that we can talk to God, each one of us, no matter who we are, because God is everywhere and God made each one of us to be His friend, so God loves us. So the purpose and benefit of this program is it convinces people we can all talk to God and we can all hear God's responses in our minds, in our hearts, in our consciences, and the Bible and the Catechism confirms that, plus the fact that we've had 10,000 saints before us, and they all talk to God and they all hear God. So that's one of the main thrusts of this weekly show, is to convince people we can talk to God, we can hear God. And then the third most amazing thing is, as it says in the book of Mark, chapter 16, verse 20 in the Bible, Mark 16:20, that God shows us signs and clues confirming that He's with us, that He's working with us, He is with us, He's beside us, He's hearing us, He's answering us. He sends us clues called coincidence miracles that convince us that He's with us. So I'm going to share some things today by people who've called in or by things that I've experienced, just to notice that. And the first one I'm going to talk about seems to me that it took probably 20 years for God to orchestrate, because He had to have people born on a certain day. They had to register their car on a certain day to get a certain license plate number. They had to be traveling on this particular day to a job they got maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So they're traveling from that job at lunchtime. God had to orchestrate many things. It probably took years for Him to orchestrate everything I'm about to tell you in just one single coincidence miracle. Now, you all know I pass out cards to anybody I can, advertising our 2 books and advertising these radio shows. And the title of the 2 books, I hope you all know by now, but the title is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. And 50,000 is written out with numbers, 5000. So if you want to Google Amazon or Barnes & Noble, it's Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Now, I pass out little business cards highlighting the books and our weekly shows. And when I do that, I often ask people if they can share with me any miracles that they've noticed in their life, any miracles they've heard about, so I can build some of that reserve to share on the radio here. And also because when I ask people to share their miracles, we have a bonding go on between us because I share some of mine, they share some of theirs. And while we're doing that, Mark 16:20 is happening. God is revealing to us that he's with us. So on one particular day, I was handing out cards, and I bumped into two ladies who happened to be sisters, and they asked about my book, and they asked about the radio show. They asked for some miracle stories, and I mentioned a couple things to them, and I asked them if they had any things. And because I had mentioned some miracles with numbers, I told them about some miracles that we see, coincidence miracles where numbers are involved. They both chimed in and said, well, for years now, my sister and I have been seeing the number 47. We talk about it all the time. We're always seeing the number 47. We even text each other when it happens now. And it happens a couple of times a week, sometimes more, but a couple of times a week we see the number 47. And so we talked about that, and I've been seeing numbers now for well over 40 years now that mean things, that confirm that God is with me. So we talked about it, and they asked my opinion, and I told them that my inspiration at the moment, I felt I was inspired by God to say to them that they should probably ask their family members if that number means anything, because it may mean something like their great-grandfather had a P.O. box, number 47, or when he was 47 years old, something happened, or an address they used to have when they were growing up, and they may have moved from now, but the family might have lived on number 47 on a certain street, etc. And I was inspired to tell them that, and I think that might reveal a lot of things. And then the next day, I was inspired to go to a church for a visit. Sometimes I'm inspired to go spend a half an hour in a church and chill out and calm down and focus on just God, and away from noise and away from everything else going on. Take a break, and usually about midday, I go out for lunch. So I stopped at a church, and as I was leaving the church, about 5 minutes before I left, I started thinking on this particular story of the number 47, and I was thinking how amazing that was, that God was giving these sisters these proddings constantly. 47, it's causing them to bond and think of each other. They both know they're getting inspired to notice the number. And so I walked out of the church, and as soon as I walked out of the church, I was walking over to my car, which was parked on the street at the curb. The first car came by. The first car that came by as I was trying to get into my car had a license plate number 47. 47 was on the license plate. And I was thinking about it, so, that's a coincidence miracle. I was thinking about the story, and then I see the 47. I get into my car, and I'm driving away, and the first four-way intersection, there's 4 stop signs, 4 cars had to stop. It's a 4-way intersection, so all 4 cars stop, and the car on the left-hand side coming out of that road had a number 4477, which again was the number 47, right? I mean, it had 4477, but it was again 47. I just saw 47 when I walked out of the church. Well, the next intersection, the next 4-way intersection, was probably a quarter mile down the road, and this time there was only one car coming from the right-hand side beside me, coming straight ahead, and the car that came out of that road on the right-hand side, its number was 7744. Now let me quickly recap. The 2 sisters keep seeing the number 47. I went to church to pray at noon, and when I'm coming out of the church, I'm thinking about those 2 women from the prior day. The first car I see has a license plate number 47. I drive down to the first intersection, 4-way stop, and the car on the left side pulls out. Its number is 4477. And I go a quarter mile down the road, and only one car is coming out of the right-hand side intersection, and that car is 7744. Now, if you just reflect on this, it had to take years for God to orchestrate those people had to buy cars, get license plates, be coming in this particular direction of a quarter-mile radius. Really spectacular when you think about it. And that reminds us of, in the Bible, the book of Mark, chapter 16, verse 20. Our next coincidence miracle is I was passing out cards, and again, some of the people I passed the card out to wanted to hear something about the book, about our radio show. So I explained coincidence miracles, what they are. I explained I've been doing this for 54 years now. Taught Sunday school for 45 years. Was a president in 4 companies, so at least they know I have a background. I'm a great-grandfather. So I have a lot of stories, a lot of coincidences, a lot of people have given me over the years. And after I finished, the woman I was talking to was with a relative of hers, but she conveyed to me the story that her great-great-grandmother had 20 children. And obviously these 20 children also got married and had other children. And so at this point, she tells me, like, the family size at this point from all the marriages and children is something like 250 people. And they have annual meetings. They purposely plan annual meetings somewhere in the United States, and people travel miles to come to these family meetings. They're great gala events. And they've been doing this for many, many years. And at these meetings, they share their coincidence miracles. They've been doing this for many years. So that's a coincidence miracle for me and you, for us today, to know that there's a family doing this. And the important point that she made to me was her great-great-grandmother was very much into prayer and very much into experiencing miracles. And they lived through the Depression. They certainly, had difficulty, and they lived through the 2 wars, the Great World War I, Great World War II. And so they had many, many miracles in their family to share, and many of them are in writing and being saved, and they have pictures of them. So that was very uplifting for me to imagine 250 people. A woman started all this because she believed in God, talked to God, and had miracles, and she had 20 children and raised them all to know about and think about God and ask God. The mantra in the family, the mantra is, if you need something, ask God. The next coincidence miracle is I approached, there were a group of 3 women in a store, and I walked over and handed out the cards and explained briefly about the book and our radio show and coincidence miracles. And one of them was just stunned, and her jaw dropped, and she said, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." She said, we drove over here in the car, and I was telling my friends about a very dear friend of mine who is an author and a songwriter, and he passed away. And while I was telling them that in the car, the radio began to coincidentally play his record. We were all stunned. We were talking about him, and the record began to play, and it was his song. And here you are coming and telling us about coincidence miracles. Our next coincidence miracle is about a woman one of our listeners who wrote in and said, she appreciates the show and enjoys it very much. She was driving down the highway recently, and she saw a woman had pulled over and got out of her car, and she was taking pictures of the clouds up in back of her. That she was going a certain direction, but the woman was taking pictures of the clouds in back of her. So she pulled over, got out of her car, and looked, and she saw the clouds had taken a formation of Jesus up in the sky, made out of clouds. You could see his face, his arms, his body, and he was holding his hands out, and it certainly looked like a statue of Jesus holding his hands out, welcoming people. Well, I hope today's program has convinced everyone listening that we can all pray to God, ask Him what to do, ask Him for wisdom, and He will put wisdom into our mind. Ask Him we want to do His will, help us do His will. We can all do that, and He will send us inspirations. God bless you all. I'll talk to you next week.